I want to start by saying, I am not someone who believes in things I cannot explain. I'm an engineer. I spend my days solving problems with logic and data. What happened on that camping trip in the Appalachian Mountains 4 years ago has no logical explanation I have ever been able to construct, and I have tried. There were four of us: me, my college friend David, his girlfriend Priya, and my younger brother Caleb. We had done this trail before. A 2-night backcountry loop, moderate difficulty, well marked. We knew the area. That's the part that still gets me. We were not inexperienced people who wandered somewhere we didn't belong. We knew that forest. We set up camp on the first night without any problems. Good weather, clear sky, decent fire. We ate, talked, went to sleep around 10:30 p.m. My brother and I were sharing a 2-person tent. David and Priya had their own. I woke up at 1:14 a.m. I know the exact time because I checked my watch immediately. It was a habit from years of early morning work calls. I woke up because of a sound. Not a dramatic sound, not a scream or a crash, just a sound that was wrong. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps in the leaves just outside the tent. I lay completely still and listened. The steps moved from my left to my right, maybe 3 meters from the tent wall. Then they stopped. Then, after about 20 seconds, they started again. This time they came from behind the tent, moving around toward the front. Something was walking, a circle around our campsite. I nudged Caleb awake. He was immediately alert. He had always been a light sleeper. I put my finger to my lips. He nodded. We both lay there, listening. The steps completed the full circle, then started again. Slow, patient, not rushed. Whatever was out there was not scared of us. It was not fleeing. It was not passing through. It was circling us deliberately, the way you circle something you are assessing. I reached for my torch. Caleb grabbed my arm. He shook his head. I understood. If we turned the light on, whatever was outside would know exactly where we were within the tent. In the dark, it could only guess. We lay there for 40 minutes. I counted every circuit. 7 full circles. Then the footsteps stopped, somewhere on the north side of the camp, and did not come back. In the morning, I got up first. I walked the perimeter of the campsite while the others were still asleep. I was looking for tracks. I found them immediately. They were in a clear arc through the soft earth just beyond the fire ring, a consistent trail, evenly spaced, continuing all the way around the site. I crouched down and looked at them for a long time. They were bipedal, 2 feet, humanoid stride, roughly the same width as mine, but longer, significantly longer than any normal stride I could account for. And at no point in the full circle did they come close enough to the fire ring to be visible from inside the tents. Whatever had made them had understood exactly how far the darkness began. It had stayed just inside it the entire time. We packed up and left that morning. We didn't finish the loop. David complained the whole way back to the car. Priya didn't say much. Caleb didn't say anything at all. I still have a photograph of the trail map from that trailhead. I look at it sometimes. I think about those 7 circles. I think about the thing that knew exactly where the darkness ended. I've never been back.
My family has owned a cabin in northern Minnesota for 30 years. I grew up going there every summer. I know every trail, every clearing, every sound that forest makes at different times of year. I know the difference between a deer moving through brush and a raccoon knocking over a bin. I know what wind sounds like in those particular trees. I am telling you this so you understand what I mean when I say that what I saw on the last night of our trip in August 3 years ago was not any of those things. There were just 2 of us that trip, me and my husband Marcus. We had gone up alone for the first time since our kids were born, a long weekend without them. It was supposed to be relaxing. For the first 2 days, it was. On the 3rd night, we sat on the back porch after dinner. It was a clear night, genuinely dark, the way only rural Minnesota gets, where you can see the Milky Way, and it actually looks like something. The tree line was about 40 meters from the back of the cabin, a large open clearing between us and the trees. We were talking quietly, glasses of wine, no lights on behind us. I was facing the tree line, he was facing me. At some point, I noticed something at the edge of the trees. My brain processed it slowly, the way your brain does when it sees something that doesn't immediately make sense. It took me probably 5 full seconds to understand what I was looking at. There was a figure standing at the tree line, tall, very still, just standing there, facing the cabin. I stopped talking mid-sentence. Marcus said, "What?" I said very quietly. "There's someone at the trees." He turned around slowly. We both looked. The figure did not move. It just stood there. It was too dark to make out details. It was a shape, a silhouette, the absence of trees in one particular spot, but it was undeniably there, and undeniably upright, and undeniably looking at us. Marcus stood up. The moment he stood up, it stepped back into the trees and was gone. Not ran, not fled, stepped, 1 step back, and the forest swallowed it. We went inside immediately and locked everything. We sat in the kitchen with every light in the cabin on and talked in low voices for an hour. At midnight, I made us both go to bed. I don't know how Marcus slept, but I lay awake until about 3 a.m. At 3 a.m., I heard something on the porch, a single footstep. 1, on the wooden boards of the back porch, right outside the bedroom window. Then, silence. I did not move. I did not wake Marcus. I lay completely rigid with my eyes open, and I counted to 600. Nothing else happened. In the morning, I went out to the porch before Marcus was awake. The wooden boards hold moisture in the morning. They were slightly damp. There was a single footprint in the damp wood near the railing, just one, facing the bedroom window. I photographed it, and then I scrubbed it away with my shoe before Marcus came out. I don't know why I did that. I think I didn't want him to want to stay and investigate. I wanted us to leave. We left after breakfast. I told him I just wanted to get home to the kids. I haven't told him about the footprint. I haven't told anyone about the footprint. Until now. I still don't know what was standing at that tree line. I don't know what stepped onto my porch at 3 a.m. I don't know if it's still there at the edge of those trees, watching the cabin stand empty through the winter. I don't want to know.
This is the story I have the hardest time telling, not because it's the most frightening, although it is, but because I know how it sounds. I know what you're thinking as I set it up. I thought the same things. Before it happened to me, I was 19. I was doing a solo hiking trip through a remote section of the Pacific Northwest. I had done solo trips before. I was prepared. 3 days of food, water filtration, good gear, downloaded maps. I told 3 people, my planned route, an expected return date. By the second evening, I was deep enough in that I hadn't seen another human being in about 18 hours. I set up camp in a small clearing beside a creek. Good sight, flat ground, water source, clear sky above. I ate, filtered some water for the morning, and sat by my small camp stove. For a while, it was around 9 p.m. when I got into my tent. I couldn't sleep, nothing specific, just the hyper-awareness you sometimes get on solo nights, when your brain won't fully accept that you are alone and safe. I lay there, listening to the creek and the wind. At some point, maybe 11 p.m., I heard an owl, a great horned owl. I knew the call. I had looked them up before the trip, specifically, because I knew I would hear them at night, and I didn't want to startle myself. Classic 2-tone call, deep and resonant in the dark trees. I lay there and listened to it for a few minutes. It was actually calming, something familiar and identifiable in all that unfamiliar darkness. Then, from much closer, maybe 30 meters away, just beyond the creek, something called back. The same call. The exact same call. Here's the thing. I know owls answer each other. I know that's completely normal behavior. I had read about it. I was prepared for it. So for the first response, I felt nothing. But the second response was different. It was slightly wrong. Not wrong. In a way, I could immediately identify. Just wrong. In the way that your brain flags something before your conscious mind has caught up. The cadence was a half beat, off. The second note was slightly too long. It was close enough to correct that you wouldn't notice unless you were listening very carefully, in complete silence, with nothing else to focus on. I sat up in my tent. The real owl called again from further away. It was moving, as owls do, and then the thing near the creek answered again. Same slightly wrong call, same half beat off. I turned my headlamp on. I aimed it at the tent wall, not outside. I just needed light. I sat very still, and I listened. The real owl called twice more, and then went silent, moving further off into the trees. The thing by the creek called once more after it had gone. Then that also went silent. I did not sleep. I sat upright in my tent with my headlamp on and my knife in my hand until the sky started to gray around 5 a.m. Then I packed my tent without eating breakfast, crossed the creek, and hiked out. I did the last day and a half of the trip in one push. I reached my car at 4:30 p.m. and I sat in it for 20 minutes before I trusted myself to drive. I've looked up everything that mimics bird calls. I've read about certain animals, certain reported phenomena, certain things researchers have documented in remote forested areas. I have not found an explanation that satisfies me entirely. What I keep coming back to is this. It wasn't trying to call to me. It was calling to the owl. It was using the owl's language, not mine. It was communicating with something else in those trees, and whatever was communicating with it answered and moved away, which means I was not the most interesting thing in those woods that night. I find that somehow worse.